What's up, fam? Elijah Chad here, and welcome back to another episode of EXTOL WE. And this week, Azriella is my extra, and I am the ordinary. Videos that went live this last week that I recorded from 3.5 years ago in the past were a well-aged word, and hindsight is 2020. I recorded those videos across the gap from 2020 into 2021 and declared from the very last day of 2020 a prophetic word that 2020 was an amazing year, that God was going to cause all things to work together for our good, and that the principle that God was teaching me was that a word planted in adversity bears the most multiplied fruit. And I think it was so beautiful then this last week that Azzy and I broke through a well-aged word that was over her life, and that God bore crazy fruit in this last week. Azzy girl, when you were a little bitty girl and daddy would play with you, like what was it that you used to do that was so surprising to dad that I just thought it was amazing?
You would hide rattles for me, and I'd have to try to find them, and I could find every single one.
Yeah, and you were finding them way earlier than object permanence was supposed to be in effect. I remember you'd be by the sliding door clear across the living room. I would hide your rattle under a blanket, under the sofa with your back turned, but you could hear the rattling, and then you would turn around and you would crawl clear across the living room and find it under a pile of blankets. And you're way, way, way before a year old, somewhere between a half a year old and a year old. Now, when I saw you doing that stuff, who did that remind me of? Yeah. And what was it that I asked God for and declared over your life at that time? What was the word that I planted?
That would be 2 times smarter than you.
Yeah, everything that God has given me by way of grace and capacity in Him, that you would have 2 times more than that. So then this last week then, what was it? What did God do through your life that put on display Him verifying that word and bringing it to pass in your life?
I learned by listening to your saying your verses, and we've been trying to do that the last couple of weeks. But Dad noticed that it's easier for us to do it with the actions. But he said we were gonna start reading it, I said, Dad, we don't need to start reading it. I already can say it, the whole thing. And I literally said almost the whole thing.
Yeah, because usually I read you guys' verses to you, so you guys are learning the verses just by hearing.
Yeah.
And so you challenged me, hey Dad, how about you learn the verses like us, right? Just by listening. Like, what is the passage that we're memorizing?
Psalms 34, 1 to 22.
So it's 22 verses. I have like the first verse, and you raised all 22 verses, and I have kind of roughly the first verse, right? Now, did you do better than me? Was it a little bit better? Like, how much better? Yeah, it wasn't. No, you absolutely smoked me. Like, it was no comparison. But when you absolutely crushed me into the ground with your ability, was I super upset that you had made me look really bad? What did I say instead?
The opposite.
The opposite. What did I tell you? Do you remember?
That you were really proud of me.
I started crying. I was so moved because it was so amazing seeing God help accelerate you. He took that aged word that I had planted in your life, and He was making it true. Now, as we talked about that, I often ask you, are you smarter than Daddy right now? No. But are you more intelligent than me? 100%. God is making you more intelligent. And how do we use that intelligence?
To help others.
To help others, which was so awesome then. So we went up, you did, what camp did you do this last week? Science camp. So I was taking you up to science camp, and you had an insight for me from something that you were thinking about in bed. Like, what was it you were thinking about in bed?
A rainbow.
Rainbow. Oh, what was your insight about the rainbow?
That red's the most arrogant because it's the first color, but purple like the king, and he is the most gentle, and he's the bottom of everything.
The purple is the last color. And so it's like the foundation of the rainbow. And what does the color purple represent?
The king.
The king. And how do kings rule?
Like a servant.
Like a servant. And rule like a servant and serve
like a king. Helping others is the very best thing.
Yeah. And so I think it's so beautiful, Azzy, seeing how you are absolutely outpacing my life, that God is fulfilling his word over your life, and that you're making Daddy look really, really bad with the capacities that God is giving you. So fam, my encouragement to you is that as God works in and through you and calls to release prophetic words over your children, your business, your country, whatever context of leadership that you're in, that in that place of planting the word, that a well-aged word will grow into multiplied fruit. And that as God bears that fruit, that as you maintain the testimony of what he has done, when you look back, you can then see with hindsight, 2020 hindsight, what it is that God has born in and through that planted word. So if you subscribe to what I am doing, then hit the button, hit it, and then get it. Hit the bell as well so you get notified with the new content. And if you love this video, you didn't just like it, hit the thumbs down button. Pray blessings on all of our lives together. I love you guys lots, and I'll see you in the next video.
Dad, it's not content, it's content.
Oh, it's content.
I think it's content.
Yeah.
You should look it up.
All depends on what emphasis you put on which syllable.
I don't know what that means.
Someday you will know, my friend.